was not happy with Bob jumping in, I'll tell you that, 'cause that has nothing to do with.
Oh, we're live? We're live?
Yeah.
All right, we're here for the Small Business Committee meeting. Let's jump right in. As we know, New York State has authorized IDAs to award small loans and grants to qualified nonprofits and businesses in the community. So I have provided in the board packets, first and foremost, what it's going to look like on our website.
Thank you.
Sure. So our whole thing was functionality, ease of use. I wanted it to be so they can apply right on the website, submit it to me, and then right there the ball gets rolling. You don't have to mail it, you don't have to come here and drop it off. So functionality, I mean, it's just a quick homepage overview of what the program is. Sign up now. Application, you just fill in the sections, and then you're good to go. You submit, and then from there we can evaluate. So if you guys have any questions on that or comments.
That sounds good.
Okay, but in addition to that, I'd like to see that the applications and the verbiage get out to each village website.
Oh, as in,
The application, grant application, loan application.
so they would have to put it on their website and submit it to us. We'll look at that. But they should definitely post about it, you know, like go to the IDA website.
Right.
That's it, just give them, say, here's where you gotta go.
Because I'm sure the town of Montgomery will use their Facebook page to, with our website link, you know, easily apply on the IDA website. But we should definitely work together on that.
Yeah. I think the whole idea is get this information out as best we can. And, I think getting into the villages, because I know myself, I'm always on the village website. And I think most village people do go to their sites. Get your village people.
Agreed. Now let's work with the villages to make sure they post that we have a grant program on their site. And that brings us into our second item, which is grants and loans. We've talked about we do grants, loans, both. I think here the consensus is that we just want to do grants. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Bob Santo, how do you feel about just doing grants as opposed to grants and loans? Bob?
Yeah,
How do you feel about doing grants instead of loans? Not offering the loans.
I think that, you know, give grants and
Okay.
loans, different grants, some whole loans and don't put up be order, trying to demand payment.
Yeah, right. I think we're in agreement here that we can just do loan, or we're just going to do grants, and those grants are capped at $10,000. How much we know. So, should we put a cap on the total amount of grants that we're going to give out? I know we spoke about a handful of numbers in the 190 to 200 range. What do you guys think?
Oh, as far as total monies?
This is the total amount of grant money that we are going to be giving out
So,
potentially.
That's a good point, because I had thought that we already approved $200,000 a few months ago. Now, I think since you're bringing it up, we need to clearly iron that out with the IDA board when it meets on the 14th, and come up with a conclusion. So my personal belief is that we have already talked about the $200,000 at length. We all seem to agree to the $200,000. I have no problem at this point with the $200,000 unless somebody brings up a reason why we should or shouldn't.
I'm good with that also. I know it was in a different forum, but we still had to take it back to the IDA, present it, and see if they agree. But I'm with Don on this.
I agree. I mean,
I think it was 2 or 225, whatever it
It's
was.
215.
215.
yeah. So I mean, we'll set aside $200,000 in funding for grants, and I think that can serve our purpose here, helping small businesses and nonprofits.
I agree.
Okay, so we're set at 200. Now, similar to what you guys did at Tom Strong, do you want to assign tiers? And if so, I think we should assign monetary values to each tier.
Well, I think since it's PPE and a cleaning mechanism, whatever that is that business needs to establish itself or to have the safest possibilities for operations, that's what we do. I don't think we can do a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I think in justifying their needs, like a restaurant versus a hair salon, restaurants might need a lot more than a hair salon. So I don't know that we can do something like that. I know we have a $10,000 limit, but I think we should evaluate that on a case-by-case basis in this particular forum.
I tend to agree. And in the new application, I like how they provide a place where you can put your statement of need, and then there's a budget there. So you can put, masks and the cost, and then that tells us how much they need. And then, their statement of need is going to play a role in how we read the application. But it's going to be, I think, hard if we do put a cap on and tier it. If they're tier 2, which is $3,000, and they need $5,000 worth of equipment, what are they going to say? I guess we say no. But if this is what they need, then
I know that, I think Matt and I talked about this once before, is that, just using different things, there's different square footages that are affixed to these businesses. So it's hard for us to determine on tier level when it's really the size of the business.
Right, and how many employees?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
no, I'm okay with, we go by the need and then the budget that they provide.
So did we reach out to the cleaning services in Montgomery that we might be?
Yeah, so we have, a few, Fusion being one of them. But moving forward, I think we should let them know that there could be some bulk orders coming their way from local businesses. And I know, Don, you were talking about a place, was it New River Girls Gate?
That's this here sanitizing, that when we get into I have a whole list of things that we should consider purchasing or when we get down into this, and I can talk a little bit about that once we get into that subject matter. But I think what Matt was talking about was cleaning companies.
Yes, the
Cleaning
cleaning,
companies.
and how much they charge, if we have local Montgomery cleaning companies, we should go to them first, of course. And we need to find out what they charge per square foot, so we can know. And so bigger facilities are gonna actually, obviously cost more to clean.
And Bob McLaughlin, are we able to give grants to use for the cleaning or hiring cleaning companies to clean buildings?
Depends on what the definition under the CDC is, whether that's included in PPE. I know there was guidance this morning, right, from the EDC on that.
Yeah. So
Let me just try and pull that up.
and this grant application from the EDC lists a handful of PPE type materials. Cleaning materials and disinfectants are on there. But I don't know if
Are we supplying them, or are we allowed to
Well,
clean the facility?
Yeah, no, that's
I don't know, so that's something we gotta find out.
We'll dig deeper into that. Cleaning materials and disinfectants is on there, but the way I read that is they can use that grant money to buy.
To purchase, okay.
Right. But
So
it could be. We'll wait on Bob to get back to you.
So I have it here somewhere that what they talked about is not only supplying, and they talked about this Friday in the EDC with Chrome, not only supplying the sanitizer and stuff like that, but the actual people to actually perform the jobs. Like, for instance, sneeze
The
guards.
CDC definition, which is what EDC provided, includes masks, hand sanitizers, sneeze guards, face guards, gloves, eye protection, safety footwear, respiratory devices, cleaning materials and disinfectants, specialized packaging for shipping, signage, and COVID testing kits. Since the businesses are supposed to operate a business, I think the board can make a decision on whether or not the PPE will include the cost of companies actually doing cleaning and cleaning services. I would think that that would be fully justifiable on the grants. When you get a grant in the state to construct a bridge, you're including the soft costs and the hard costs for the bridge, including planning all of that pre-work, and I think that would be included under this. The board can make that decision.
One thing I like about it is we'll be helping cleaning up Montgomery, meaning customers will be able to go into shops if they're restaurants or beauty salons or nail salons, whatever they are, and they know they're going into a place that's been sanitized.
Yeah, I think, Bob, getting back to your point, it's not in this here, a copy dated April 13th, but it was on line 18, and what they referred to was distressed areas. No?
No, so that's by census designation, and that's unemployment rates and poverty rates. And I actually reached out to a rural economic development, the place in Walden, a little office, and they said the closest we get to the threshold, which is 20%, is 12%. So there are no underprivileged, by census definition, places in the town of Montgomery.
Okay, so we're not a distressed area.
Distressed,
Right. And distressed area is really aimed at loans. And I think the closest, Walkill may be there, but certainly Newburgh, I think, is the closest to the distressed area. Here is Montgomery.
Here, percentage-wise, we have to meet 20% to be a distressed area. The highest we get is 12. We don't.
So we're not a distressed area.
No.
But getting back to Bob's point, we can hire somebody to actually do the work.
Right.
Is that in the general consensus, Bob, is that right?
So the board can't engage, but the grant program can be used to pay for the cost of the business engaging
Right.
a company that has to clean the businesses. And then I think what Matt said is absolutely correct too. It's a way to get the businesses to reopen, and if there's some ongoing cost, to be able to pay for that so that people can get into the business and traffic and help the economy recover.
So on this application, an applicant would put cleaning services cost X. Then we would, in theory, award this grant, and they could use that money to do the cleaning services, right? That's essentially, we award the grant money and they use it for that purpose.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so that's something we'll bring up to the full board on the 14th.
But again, what I think is important for this committee to develop over the next 2 weeks before the next board meeting is the guidelines that sets forth the parameters of the grant application and what exactly can be paid for by a grant. And that's what the board, the committee should recommend to the board, and the reasoning, and the board should approve those guidelines to make it clear going forward. Here's what's an eligible cost, and here's what you can apply for. That doesn't prevent the board later on from adding to the eligibility of certain items as you learn what's available. I don't think anyone's an expert as to what's available to clean businesses for COVID right now. And the CDC in the fall may change its mind and have a different approach.
So preliminarily, we can include the PPE as per the CDC definition, and then the cleaning services, but that's something that we bring to the full board. That would be the parameters for PPE, for fixtures that stop COVID, which is something we should discuss too, like plexiglass, and then the cleaning services, but that would be the committee's recommendation to the full board to adopt those parameters.
I think that's right.
Okay. Okay, so we have PPE, we'll look into the cleaning services, but bring that to the full board. Fixtures as well, so the plexiglass, and things of those nature, should also be obviously considered, because it stops or potentially slows the spread of COVID in businesses, I think that's key.
Yeah, sanitizing stations,
Sanitizing stations, yeah.
I don't think that was on here.
Now I got a question for you. So, the plexiglass and stuff, these businesses are probably already open and partially open, and they probably install plexiglass now. Can we reimburse for safety stuff they did for COVID-19?
From my understanding, we can, and that's a business decision. Am I right on that, Bob?
So again, I think you can make a recommendation, this committee can make a recommendation to the board, and the board can determine that the purpose of the plexiglass and all that stuff is done the day or after the governor signed the bill. I think that's fully justified as a reimbursement. You have to develop the parameters of what you want as proof that they've actually spent those monies. If you ask for, allow for reimbursement prior to the date of signing, I think there is some risk that the ABO at some point may say that was not eligible because there wasn't a bill at that point. It was passed, it was waiting to be signed, but it wasn't effective. I think it's fully justifiable from the effective date of the bill going forward, even though it predates the eligibility approval of the board.
And I think, Bob, you're right. I think for this board to be safe in the decision process, we should put that date to it.
And I suppose we could ask for receipts as well to
Yeah.
corroborate. Yeah, I think receipts is the easiest way, or a statement.
That's
Something, yeah.
because it's gonna have to be dated.
Right, and with this, I think the main thing is we have to document. So you need that proof. You know, of course, I think we trust a lot of our business.
We have to have receipts.
We need the proof, the receipts.
The
to back it.
receipt, then the cost, and the date that it was purchased
Mhm.
or installed, however you want to install it.
Right. And then just for reference, in the packet, I included the reporting, I guess, requirements given by the ABO in the form of a spreadsheet. I think it's pretty straightforward, but it just kind of goes to show the level we have to document. So with additional notes on this, for example, we can, put reimbursement, and then provide a link to the receipt or something like that. But this kind of just goes to show what we need to submit, and the very strict reporting requirements.
Right.
I think it's very easy it's just an Excel sheet, you input the information, and you're good to go.
This is basically the one that they had Friday, that they showed Friday.
Yeah.
Could you put a date to this governor's signature? I forgot what it was.
Is it the 7th? Nah, I don't know off the top of my head. Well, I know what our
Bob, do you know the date that the governor signed this order?
I do, I have it, I'm looking for it now.
is that
Just give me,
the Westchester
give
IDA.
me a couple minutes.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The Westchester IDA makes companies, this is for loans, provide financials prior to March 7th.
I got 6/18, I think it was 6/18.
So that's the governor's signature, so we're gonna go with that date, right?
Let's go with that date for now, yeah,
Right.
unless,
The board, when we bring it to the board, they come up with something different.
yeah, I mean, we should recommend, as per
Yeah.
what Bob said, we should do the
I
dates.
think that's unofficial.
Okay, so we'll iron out the parameters, meaning definition of PPE, fixtures, cleaning services, full board to decide.
I just want to bring up the fixtures. Like I said earlier, I've done some research on this stuff here, and as far as the like sneeze guards and things like that, that this plexiglass would come into play, they actually have them where a person doesn't have to come in there and screw them down. They have them in stanchions, like
Right.
for instance at a counter where it registers, you put it up, it has legs to it, and it's blockaded and it has an area where you could hand over your receipts and whatever you need to hand to customers. So it's a portable type thing.
You know what might be helpful? We could put together like a master list of local companies that make the fixtures, make the PPE, and we can get Town of Montgomery to post on their website, villages post on their website, we can post on our website, just so people apply and they get approved. There's just a list of companies locally and regionally that do.
And anything we can keep local.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Matt, we were talking about that earlier. We want to stay local within the town of Montgomery. But if we can't get certain things, we could bring it out to our Hudson Valley region.
Perfect.
All right?
Absolutely.
I think that makes sense.
Just like the labor.
Hey guys, I have June 17th as the date of the effect of the chapter law.
That's one day.
Okay, thanks,
That
Bob.
would be the,
Yep. So that's the date, Bob, that you recommend we kind of go with.
again, I think you can, you know, maybe the board can make any decision
Right.
it wants, but I think if you go back to at least that date forward,
Yeah.
that's fully defensible and justifiable, and the risk of criticism is very, very slim, I think.
Okay, good.
So we'll go 617.
The other thing I wanted to just raise while you're in the current discussion of preferred vendors, you know, the state, especially over the last half dozen years, has made a tremendous push on minority and women-owned business. I think it would be a good marketing campaign with Albany if the guidelines had some reference to you know, trying to get minority and women-owned business preferences as vendors or percentage of the vendors. It may not be possible. I don't know what's out there, what minority or women-owned business are producing PPE. But if you had it in the guidelines, I think that would be consistent with state law and you know, gain some kudos to the town board, IDA, for acknowledging the requirement that the state's been pushing for the last half dozen years or so.
I love it.
I agree. Do you guys mind if I research vendors within a local township for these particular products?
Please share it. Let's put it out there.
Okay.
Love it. That's great. Anything else on the fixtures, the parameters? I think we have our what we're going for, at least briefly. So I'd like to take us to the application. I think the application is good. It goes into, I guess, the necessary information. You got your need, business information, obviously contact information. But for me, in reading the bill, I feel as if there's a few extra parameters or at least questions we should ask. One being, and Bob, I don't know if you've gone through this application yet, but I know the business or non-for-profit, the entity has to be financially viable. Does this application, and I know they ask, you know, companies' annual sales, is that enough to show financial viability?
I would defer to the committee.
Right.
You know, I think what you need is, you know, I'm putting back my old banker hat on and loan committee hat on. You know, and Jeff Christ is, I think he's still involved in a bank somewhere. He may have some insights. But, you know, I think financial viability is a function of how long you've been in business and what your sales were before the pandemic. It's hard to demonstrate financial viability if you only started your business in January of 2020. If, on the other hand, you've been in business for 5 years or more and you can show financial statements and balance sheets are in the black and not in the red, that to me is financial viability and allows you to come and say, you know, upon applications that you meet the financial viability test. So I don't think asking for one piece is enough. I think you need multiple pieces and then make an evaluation. And I think, you know, authority to do it. And, you know, your evaluation is your evaluation.
Thoughts?
Well, we go, talk about it a little bit more. What are you getting at?
How are we going to determine financial viability? What documents do you guys think we should be asking for and examining?
So, my position has not changed on this. For the grants, since we're not talking about loans, I prefer to stay away from the financial viability of businesses. I'm uncomfortable asking for these small businesses within our township to produce things like that. But that's just my own opinion, and whatever the board decides, we'll do.
Listen, if the businesses and
Unfortunately,
businesses.
Don, the statute requires that determination before you can issue a grant.
Well, then that
So
is
there
not.
are three findings that you have to make under the statute. One is, was the business financially viable prior to the state disaster emergency? Two, that the business conducts business within the area served by the IDA, so that's easy. And three, that the business has been negatively affected by the state disaster. And again, I think that's easy. If they've been closed for 3 months,
That's right.
they've been negatively affected. But you still need to make a determination that they were financially viable. Right?
And Bob,
Essentially, but for COVID, they'd still be operating.
Bob, how do you find out if a business was financially secure? I mean, if they were in business, weren't they before the virus and shut down and are gonna reopen? Wouldn't that fall into the parameters?
You're not looking for financial security, you're looking for financial viability.
Which means what?
Could they continue their business?
Well,
Could they continue their business operations without COVID? So, you know, there have been some businesses in the Albany area that have shut down in April, March, and May, and they announced the shutdown was due to COVID. But then, if you peel away the story, it also says, and we were planning on shutting down anyway because we want to retire.
right, but Bob, if they're not, if they're starting back up, if they're reopened after the virus, isn't that showing us that they're?
I would think, Matt, that you would need some evidence of financial stability or viability prior to March 1st, March 11th, whatever the date is. And you can determine that through financial statements or 2019 tax returns or balance sheet. I sympathize with Don's point, and it's a good one, because arguably anything they submit is subject to FOIL. I do think we can make a decision that under FOIL these would be exempted documents because it's personal information that would not otherwise be disclosed. But you do need to show some documentation, if not on the application. What were your net profits in 2019? What was your monthly cash flow? I mean, if they had monthly cash flow in January and February a negative, that may not show evidence of anything, because many businesses do the majority of their work in December, right? Some businesses get 60% of their income in December. So I think you need to have some history of cash flow to demonstrate that you've at least looked at financial viability. How you determine is completely up to this committee and its recommendation to the board.
So if we ask for net profits from 2019, and I know the website people can add a form, you can upload it as a separate form, so we can get that all in one shot. I mean, if their net profit yields a number that from 2019 that we're satisfied with, that shows viability, then that is evidence of the viability itself, right, Bob?
Again, it's whatever the I think that's absolutely correct, but it's also whatever the parameters that the committee recommends for the dollars.
So right now,
You know, it's your call. If they have $1 of net profit, is that financially viable? It may be, depending on the industry, right?
it could be
You know,
not-for-profit.
restaurants run close margins.
So-
Not for profit,
So.
you know, but not for profits also have to make profits, right?
True.
You know, they have to stay in business, they have to pay salaries, they have to be efficient.
So, Bob, Friday during the web thing there, it was a very interesting hour and a half. And the one thing that I really, my ears were perked at, Perlman, a number of times, stated through all the questions and answer periods that he went through on this very subject, he said that it is up to the IDAs to make that determination of how they want to move forward. He said that more than once. It is up to the IDA to determine whether they want to have all that input. Now, you know, again, it might be really great to have that input, but I will also tell you that I believe and I hope that the function of this committee is to have a safe operating township here, for people that can enjoy the community, can enjoy the restaurants,
Absolutely.
and not have this bulk of responsibility where the businesses may or may not want to supply that information.
I think that we need.
So I was also done, I listened to the majority of that call. I did have to take another call for about 10 minutes. You know, my reaction to Perlman statements on that is a little bit different than yours. Only in the sense that he's been a bureaucrat for 30 years, and he's hedging his bets to be able to criticize you or similar agencies later on for making the wrong decisions. So my response is, I hear you, Mr. Perlman. My recommendation to this committee, and I apologize for the background noise here, my recommendation to the committee is that you need to have some justifiable means of determining financial viability. If that means you don't want financial statements and cash flow because you think that will cause an impediment to applications, I understand that argument, okay? But then you have to come up with something else so that you can check the box. You can't ignore it, it's in the statute. You're setting yourself up for severe criticism, and I might add, the ABO, if they wanted to find you didn't do what you're supposed to do, can tell the board members to pay back the money. So you don't want to do that, okay? You need to be able to check the box in a business judgment way that we came up with a credible way to determine financial viability. If your credible way is you were in business and didn't file bankruptcy before March 1st, that's an argument. I don't think it's the strongest way to go, but it's certainly a rational argument. But if we can come up with some other way, maybe Connor can speak to some other IDAs, come up with some other way to determine the financial viability, short of asking for tax returns and financial statements. Because I agree, you know, if I'm only applying for 10 grand and I have to submit tax returns, I'm probably not going to do that.
Right.
Because I don't know where they're going to wind up.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going to wind up.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I have to submit a cash flow for 2 months or 3 months, I don't know if I care about that as strongly as tax returns. you know, there needs to be some way to determine financial viability.
Okay, can we talk about that at a future date, probably before the 14th
sure.
meeting?
Well, let's continue to talk about it. We know what we have to look for. Let's choose 1 or 2, 3 items max to determine.
Right.
But
The least that you can,
yeah, that's my thing. I mean,
You don't have to
we
go
know a lot of
crazy.
these business owners. I know it's private information, but we need evidence to make our decisions. You know,
you gotta stay within the parameters.
Right.
You don't have to go overboard.
exactly. No, and it's important we have facts and
They can send in a cover sheet to their tax return.
That's it. That's good enough.
Okay, so we'll keep talking about how to determine financial viability, but it's something unfortunately we need to do, even if we do know these business owners.
You know, that's a point that Perlman
You know
has
what
done
might be-
many, many times.
You know, you know what might be helpful is to reach out to the agency's accountants and see what recommendations they would provide on financial viability,
That's a good idea.
short of tax returns and short of financial statements.
I'll do that.
All of that.
Well, I'll reach out to our local firm. Okay, so move forward, but we know that we have to.
Yeah.
So financial viability is something that we need to flesh out in this application before we post it. History in the community, I thought, was something that
Which number is that?
I don't see much about history in the
Oh,
community.
you're saying to add it to it.
Right, I'm thinking that could be useful for us. I mean, if it's a business that has ties here for the last 50 years, and maybe that's something we would like to know. I mean, we probably would know.
Can't hurt.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I think we have that in the applications
From the other one.
group.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
So,
And then something I thought this was missing was the statute says that an entity cannot receive monies from multiple IDAs. As we know, the Orange County IDA operates in this jurisdiction as well. So we need to add a question, in my opinion, that asks the applicant if they have applied or received funding from any other sources. And if so,
Absolutely.
what sources? Because if it is the OCIDA, then they cannot, they can't get revenue from us. They can't get monies from us as well.
Okay.
So I think that's something that's missing we could add. Also, the description of work in the community. I mean, it might be useful to
Just
know.
what they do.
Right,
Absolutely.
exactly. And then last thing is, are they open now? Are they open and they need the PPE right now? Are they looking to open and then they maybe, could wait a little bit? Just might be useful information to know if they're
Yes.
open.
Again, it wouldn't hurt.
Right, and those are my additions to the application we could consider. Just once again, to make it more airtight, to cross all our T's and dot our I's, we'll get the financial viability, we'll know their history, and if they've received other revenue or they're applying elsewhere. Because if they are going to apply for the Orange County IDA as well, we should coordinate with them. If they do receive funding from us, they cannot receive funding from OCIDA and vice versa.
I agree.
Great, okay, so we'll add
can
those.
you explain 12 and 13 to me?
Yeah, so the NAICS code corresponds to what they do. So restaurant industries have a code. It's just a way to identify the business. I believe, every single business type has a code.
So they would know
Utilities,
exactly what
restaurants.
we're asking.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what you're asking.
Yeah, they'll know this. They should, and if they don't, they could always reach out and ask. But I mean, they should know this. And 13, same thing.
Same thing.
Yep. So you just provide that code that corresponds with your industry.
So it's a business code.
Yep, yep. Or I think not-for-profits probably operate by the same code, if not a different code. Yeah, it's a charity registration number.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, we know reporting. This is something that I will do. Continuously document, make sure we're writing down everything we're doing. So when we submit to the ABO and the state, everything is clearly documented, and we have the evidence, the financial viability aspects to back up our decisions.
When this is done, where's this come?
I think it's submitted to the ABO, right, Bob? The reporting sheet?
I'm sorry?
The reporting sheet for the loans and grants program, that goes to the ABO. Yep, yeah, okay, it goes to the ABO within 90 days of the end
Well-
of the IDA's fiscal year.
So doesn't go, what they're providing, as I understand it, is their proposal to add to the ABO site when you file your report that's due March 31st every year. This will be an added page to the Paris filing. And they're just giving you the type of information that they think, as of today, they'll be looking at. They may add or subtract from that form.
Okay. Easy enough. So I mean, we'll have it documented in whatever format it needs to go in. We can just take information from this and upload. Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
Okay, so just to clarify on the items in which I'm going to start researching, can we do a checklist of the items you want me to research? Other than, because we've already added stuff to the EDC's list.
Right.
So, stuff that I've already looked into, just to give you a brief rundown, is masks, wipes. I don't think they have wipes on here.
Okay. And that's somewhere, I mean, that's CDC, FDA, OSHA, lid wipes are listed as.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The sanitized stations we've talked about, the plexiglass barriers we've talked about. What's been in particular in the news recent days here, Bob maybe can help me out with this, is the governor is talking about air conditioning and airways within the establishment and getting those cleaned. Do you know anything about that, Bob?
Only as much has been reported. I know that his staff is very concerned, and you know, frankly, I don't know if this is based in any facts or science. His staff is concerned that the virus could be living within the ductwork,
Right.
which is why he's not opening gyms and indoor malls. But you know, there's ductwork in every business,
Yeah.
so you know, I'm not sure where the demarcation line is.
So,
I would think that if there's a finding, I think I know where you're going. If there's a finding that the ductwork needs to be cleaned, that certainly would be eligible.
right. So that would be, I think, separate from what we talked about earlier, the cleaning of facilities or restaurants or hair salons, whatever. That would be a totally different type of job, because I think you would have to have
I agree,
HVAC type people. Yeah, Bob, I'm sorry.
But my fear on that is, you know, having done some HVAC work in the past, that can be pretty expensive to do.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know what the cost. I mean, that would suck up all 10 grand perhaps. I don't know.
Really? Yeah.
We're having it done at our office, so I'll find out a number for you.
Okay. I'll also do some research on it too.
Yeah.
See what the price range is, because I'm sure, depending upon the size of an air conditioning, the units and stuff like
How
that.
much ductwork you got, how big the
Yeah.
facility is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, so I mean,
Okay.
so I'll help you on the research. We'll put together that master list
Mhm.
of regional and local places that could do the PD and the fixtures and such. I think that's a good way to come together.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, so just a quick summary, we'll cap it at 200K. Is that what we decided? 200K. We're only offering grants based on the need and the budget that's provided. We'll add some additional information to the application, history, financial viability, which we're going to continue to talk about. I'll reach out to the accountants and ask their perspective. And otherwise, we'll keep doing this research, defining the parameters of what PPE is, what fixtures are, recommend that to the full board before 14th. That gives us a little bit of time to iron out and define details before we put a program for the board for resolution.
So, Bob, I just want to ask a question, because Connor and I have a different point of view, I think, on this. And I just, from the legal standpoint, I was talking with Connor about why is it that we cannot, or should not, maybe that's a better word, go out and start purchasing things like masks, sanitizer, the small things in a.
We gotta get the approval from the IDA.
Well, that,
first.
if we already, that's my question. If we already have a $200,000 approval, why do we need that approval?
But the.
You know where I'm going, Bob? Like, for
So let's
instance,
not go back to, not my finest hour. But, you can't purchase material on behalf of businesses because it's not part of your statute. It would be construed as a gift or a grant. And what the legislature has done here has said, here's your grant program. The businesses buy, you reimburse through a grant. It doesn't say you buy and distribute.
so, let me ask you this.
It doesn't say you can take $100,000 in potential grant money, go buy your own equipment and just hand it out.
Right.
That's not what it says.
So
It
how,
says you can provide grants, 10 grand to businesses. Now, if they've already done your reimbursing, if they have purchase orders, you can reimburse. That would be the prudent way to do it. If they have purchase orders and you just want to give them, write them a check based on the purchase orders, the only issue with that is, will they actually buy this stuff?
So they have to purchase everything. We don't purchase anything.
Correct.
Okay.
so Bob, can we recommend vendors?
I think what you can do, credibly, is you could do an RFP for a list of approved vendors that are in the town, that are in the county or in the valley, and you could add the MWBE component, and you could do a quick RFP and come up with a recommended list of vendors. And you can provide that recommended list of vendors to the businesses. And I think that would help, depending on the business, that may help solve or save some time for them. And I think that's fully credible.
So that, going way back when we first started this meeting, we talked about keeping everything local. We really can't do that. We're allowing, but the businesses are going to hire or purchase from whoever they want to. So the whole idea of local is out the door.
But we could give a list.
No, I don't think that's accurate.
Right.
You can tell them that part of the program is that they must select vendors
From this list?
they must consider vendors from your preferred listing, which has local vendors first, Orange County vendors second, and Hudson Valley vendors third. And then you can determine, the board can determine what proof they need to submit to you by saying, well, the local guy in Montgomery doesn't work for me before, whatever the reason is.
Okay.
So Ken, Don and I were speaking about it, and Matt, in the beginning of the meeting. Can we put together a large list of local companies, local meaning within our local labor policy, that supply these PPE and fixtures and post that on websites? Are we able to do that at least to let the public know that there are 40 companies that do this?
Okay. So forget about local labor policy as it's irrelevant to this program.
Well, within the range of the local labor.
But what you can do, okay, again, you have to do it by way of some sort of RFP or bid. The town of Montgomery IDA is requesting information from eligible vendors to supply PPE, equipment, and services to applicants under its small business disaster grant programs. Please submit your qualifications and what you can provide to the executive director on or before July 15th. The intent of the IDA is to create a list of those local entities and MWPEs that can provide PPE equipment and services to eligible businesses receiving grants under the program.
Okay,
And the
so,
justification for that is to say to your businesses, we've already taken this step away from you. You don't have to do that. Here's the list. What do you need? Here's the list of approved vendors. You can use other people, but they're ready to go.
great. So Don and I won't do that list. Instead, we will prepare the RFP as per, legal guidance.
Well, we can come up with.
Yeah,
a list
I
of
mean, and I'm
vendors.
happy to help. I'm happy to help on that. I mean, it could be a one-pager.
Right.
It's not, doesn't have to be anything. It should be posted on the website. It should be as advertised as it possibly can.
So we'll do the
And,
RFP route.
you know,
Yes.
you come up with the list after the board approval.
Perfect. That sounds
Does
good.
does that become part of the application?
I don't think it becomes part of the application. I think it goes on the website, and then they can select from there the vendor, or they can select other vendors if they want. But this is your preferred list, and then they have to demonstrate why they're not approving. Actually, you're right, Don. It should be part of the application. It should be an addendum to the application before they get funding. They either have to select the vendor on the list, or they have to demonstrate why those vendors don't work.
Okay, so, let me just give you my final thing here, and I'll stop. Can we deny a business if they don't refer to our list?
I think the board can certainly make that part of its guidelines.
That's good.
Yeah. Something to consider.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll add an addendum to the application. Which
Which
vendor
is-
have you
Which
used?
is why you should do the RFP, because you say in the RFP what your purpose is. Your purpose is to assist all eligible businesses in the town of Montgomery, in Orange County, in the Hudson Valley, by first providing the grant monies to your businesses, but the vendors that they select are in those three locations. You're a New York IDA. You don't want them to buy PPE from companies in Alabama. Why are we helping people in Alabama?
Right.
Nothing against people in Alabama, but you want to help people in the town of Montgomery, in the Orange County, and then in the Hudson Valley. And if those businesses aren't there, well, then they have to be New York State eligible businesses. They can't buy things from Alabama. There's plenty of PPE and equipment and services that are being provided by New York State companies,
So we'll add.
or companies in New York State.
So we'll add a question: which vendor have you used, and if you did not use or have selected vendor off the RFP list, then why? And then they can provide their justification in a box, a little paragraph as to why they couldn't, or a sentence why they couldn't, and then we can grade based on that.
And getting back to what Matt had said earlier, if people have already done some purchasing and or services within their business,
And if it's
We'll
not
have to
local,
evaluate that.
that's
We
something
have to
that the
evaluate
board
that.
would have
Right,
to
exactly.
address.
Yeah, but that's that case by
Because
case.
they didn't know.
Right.
So you could write up the RFP, or Bob could write it up, and then me and you could actually sit down and come up with vendors.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at it. I'll work with Bob to get it in its
Yeah.
final form, and then we'll take it from there.
Can you have that done by 3? Okay.
We'll get there.
It's pretty good though. It's pretty good.
I think we're good. We good?
Yep.
Bob, Santo, you good?
Yep, I'm good.
Great. I think that's it.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Bob and Bob. And
Are we gonna
Connor, you
need?
may Connie, you may want to put, you know, the committee may want to put on your calendars, another meeting, maybe
Yeah.
early next week.
Yeah.
Sure.
To kind of review what you're doing, or what you know, where you are, just to keep the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, I mean, you know, it's a short week because of the holiday, and most people.
No, you're
But,
right.
you can do it early next week. You can do it early next week, and then, you can make your final recommendations, you know, just before the board meeting if you want to, on the 14th.
So do we
But
want,
I think you have at least, you know, you need at least one more meeting and maybe two to finalize everything.
do we want to go Wednesday the 8th next week, same time?
I'm good.
Does that work?
Same time, 11:30?
Yeah, let's do 11:30 and we need to meet again.
Yeah, that would give us an opportunity to do that.
You need us.
Yeah, we'll meet again. So we'll have something drawn up before the 14th and then we'll
Perfect.
amend it. All right, thank you guys, appreciate your time.
All right, guys, see you later.
Okay, guys.